be okay. Okay, so we're going to make a start, if that's okay with people. Okay, before we start, I just want to say a big thank you to our sponsors. You'll be aware we get part funding by Welsh Government, so we do rely on our sponsor organisations and members as well. So a particular thank you to our main sponsor, Wales and West, and also to Pobl, who sponsors specifically our tenant voice type work. So this type of work and tenant pulse and research into what tenants are thinking out there across Wales. So thank you to those as well. I think you all do know me, so I'm just going to skip over this slide. Although I don't think I've met Gemma before. If Gemma's on, big hello to Gemma from Pobl as well. We'll catch up in real life at some time as well. Yeah, so you'll know, because some of your tenants hopefully would have filled it in. We did a survey using our tenant pulse to try and get the insight around what they're thinking and feeling around COVID-19. So today, there is a full report. You may have seen it. We launched it. I'm losing track of days now. I think it was last Thursday or Friday. And it's on our website as well. There is a copy there. So please read it, download it and share it across your organisations. It may prompt some thinking with different staff as well. And again, a useful one for your staff who are involved in comms, PR, that type of work as well. Might be something for them to read as well. So do take a look. So what we'll cover in this short space of time, we'll give you a bit of a background and purpose of the survey, a bit about the tenant pulse, just so you're aware of that and who we contact as part of this survey work. But what you really want to know is the main findings. What were the main messages we were picking up from tenants who completed that survey? So we'll try and focus on that bit as well, but give you a chance at the end to really think about what it might mean for your own landlord organisation, whether it's yourself in your role or other people in your organisation as well. So do start thinking about, that's something we perhaps need to do ourselves, or we need to be thinking about that. Does it apply to your organisation and your tenants as well? Okay. So a bit about Tenant Pulse, for those who don't know what it is. I'm not sure if there is anyone who doesn't know what it is, but just in case you don't, it's our Wales-wide tenant survey created by TPAS Cymru. Yeah, Lydia, my microphone is on. So, David will help you out with that. Yeah, Wales-wide survey, tenant population, online survey community, and we're working with the Regulatory Board for Wales, Welsh Government, and they shape some of the surveys that we do as well. It's cross tenure, so it's not just social housing, it's also private rented as well. We always aim for around approximately 1,000 tenants at any one time on the database. Obviously that changes. We'll do a data cleanse as people's change, circumstances change as well. But we're always trying to keep it growing, so we do appreciate your support on that. And if you want to plug it to your members, get in touch. We've got a whole load of information, text that you can just cut and paste and put into your own comms or newsletters as well. There you can see highest areas. RCT, Cardiff, Conway, Weldon Knowes, lowest Merthyr, so we're working on that as well. Highest per landlord, Trevallis and Link. And some low ones as well. So again, get your organisation, try and encourage tenants to sign up. A good time now with tenants at home, people at home not in work, could be a time to encourage them to sign up and have their say about housing. So work with different partner organisations, some ask us commissioners to run some surveys. We do a lot for Welsh Government, as we've said, private rented sector. We've also got the facility to actually target certain groups. So we're not going to waste tenants' time if the survey is not relevant to them. So we've done just PRS ones, but we'll also hopefully be able to target different client groups as well about disabilities, age in the future as well. So something else for you to think about and what you want us to ask tenants as well. And we have got a Tenant Pulse portal on our website where there's some live surveys where tenants who sign up at any one time or can just go in and add their thoughts to that as well. Okay, so we use incentives, not huge amounts, but it does encourage people to complete the surveys. And, when we tell people they've won, they do quite appreciate it, and it goes down really well, and hopefully it motivates them to, complete future surveys as well. So we do the Love to Shop vouchers, which you can obviously these days use online as well. Gives you a bit of flexibility for people. So again, incentives are a good way just to encourage people to give them that extra nudge to complete the surveys if they've got other things to do as well. Okay, so why did we do this particular survey? Well, there's no escaping the coronavirus pandemic. It's affecting everybody, but we were just really keen to find out just what tenants are thinking about, what are their concerns, fears, worries are, what do they want as well. And it's quite different from a lot of tenant surveys, particularly the ones that you may do around satisfaction, hard information. We were trying to capture more just how people are feeling at the minute, what is concerning to tenants. So hopefully then the people can understand that, landlords can respond a bit differently, and policymakers just have some insight to what tenants' thoughts and feelings are at this time. So it's quite, quite a soft type of survey, trying to encourage tenants to share how they're feeling so that landlords can shape different services or prioritise different communications as well. So that was the purpose of this one. So what did we do? As I said, we've got an online survey of all our Tenant Pulse members. So we pushed it out to social housing sector, local authorities, housing associations, and those in the private rented sector as well. It's quite a tight timescale, turnaround time. Pushed it out at the end of March, open for 11 days. We sometimes have them open a bit longer, but obviously things are changing that fast. We wanted to get something out of tenants early on to try and test what's going on out there and get a real feel for it as well. Questions, we ran them past different organisations, you can see there, to try and shape some of those questions, see how they work. What we normally do is also to make our Pulse inclusive. We've got quite a lot of people who we post out to. People perhaps they're older or digitally excluded, and quite interestingly the response rates are normally quite high with those people who post it. They do put effort in, go and post it. So unfortunately we missed those this time purely because we were home based. We didn't have the printing, the franking machines, etc. So on this occasion we weren't able to do that. But interesting to see that they normally are the ones that way where we get a really good response rate. Pleased with response rate, 30% of people, but we also had tenants come up to us, say, can I complete it? I'm not on the Pulse, I've seen it advertised. So they completed it and we shared the link with those tenants there as well. So we're pleased with the sort of overall percentages. Just on who filled it in. Yeah, so a big one, a lot of, the bulk of them were housing association tenants there, then local authority, private sector, got quite a few at 13% there, supported housing tenants, low percent, and a sort of other, a mix of people, living with tenants as well. So only a small number may not class themselves as actually the tenant, but living in a rented accommodation or a shared house type thing as well. Okay. So I'll take you over to the main findings from the report. The full detail is obviously in the report for those who want to read it. I'm going to give you the headline findings, really. I'll have a think about that. So we did ask a general open question about how you're feeling, really, about the COVID-19 situation. Yeah, and I looked at this and it was, I don't know, I wasn't sure what to make of this one, really. A lot of people saying they're totally unconcerned or unconcerned was the majority of people. Whether that is because of the vast work that's gone out there by landlords to reassure people, a lot of information out there as well. And I imagine this could change on a daily basis, isn't it? People's concerns change. You see the different statistics. I think there was a lot of concern once Boris Johnson got it. I think people are different then. So I think people's feelings about the situation will change and probably change over time as well. But interestingly, at that point in time, I perhaps was expecting a lot more people to be concerned. So if you've been doing a lot of reassurance work, could be credit to you as a landlord organisation or community organisation as well there. Just on those people who, just interesting in terms of geographic breakdown. Highest level concern in Cardiff, Caerphilly, Anglesey, Denbighshire and Blaenau Gwent. Quite varied geographic areas. Perhaps Cardiff was more because people are living a bit closer together. More houses in communal areas could have been. I'm not sure the other reasons why. Interesting, the next point, social housing tenants were less concerned than private rented. Whether they feel more reassured about, less evictions, don't need to worry about if they get struggling with rent, that the landlord will be a bit more accommodating, give them time. But also perhaps it's because of the comms that you've been putting out as social housing tenants. But there was a clear differential between social housing tenants concerned and PRS tenants concerned as well. And some of the reasons why people were concerned quite varied. So we start off on, so start off at the 17% here. Ability to pay their rent was high, sort of linked to that losing jobs as well, lack of access. Bigger one was becoming ill, or people in the family becoming ill as well. Obviously a big concern. Boredom, loneliness. Some people still saying they're not concerned as well. And the other one, where generally the other section, that 80%, was the links to having less salary if you're furloughed as a tenant as well. But also not just about becoming ill, but becoming ill and not being able to get out the house to get your medications or your food as well was an interesting one there. So there's quite some obvious links there between about ability to pay rent, linked to employment prospects or worries as well, and obviously the biggie about the actual health impact as well there. But I know a lot of landlords are working hard around supporting tenants with rent, accessing services and food. There's even landlords going out shopping for vulnerable tenants as well. So there's a lot of good work going on out there as well. Okay. Yeah, this one was quite an interesting one. Do you know what to do if you are unable to pay your rent? So 34% said no. A bit of a concern, something for you as landlords to think about there. Why is that the case? Luckily, a lot of people did know what to do as well. Again, perhaps credit to the information you're pushing out there as a landlord as well, but still an area for you to focus on, because potentially that situation could worsen as people are still waiting perhaps furlough income or other money as well, or as they're getting into further debts with other things. So could be an area which we see change as well. So something definitely for landlords to keep on top of. Yeah, just on a geographic analysis there. If you're managing properties in these areas, you've done well. Newport, Torvine, Gwynedd, Monmouthshire, Pembrokeshire. A lot of those were positive about knowing what to do if they're struggling to pay their rent in there. So they're local authority areas, wherever those tenants live. We did know a lot of landlords doing work around supporting tenants to reduce loneliness at this time, particularly as people are at home shielding. A lot of people have been at home shielding for a long time now, some less so, some isolated now. But there doesn't seem a connection from tenants to know what their landlord is doing. So although you are doing a lot, perhaps tenants don't quite understand that's the purpose of perhaps your work, as well as loneliness. It might be other things, well-being, financial resilience as well. So again, that may be something for landlords to think about in terms of how they explain their work and their support and raise awareness around the purposes of it as well. Probably people don't want to admit to being loneliness as well, isn't it? Could be an issue there, asking that type of question. Just in terms of other responses we receive into that question, some tenants who identified as vulnerable said they were still yet to be contacted by their landlord. Whether that is because a lot of landlords have done the initial priority calls, welfare calls to older tenants. Yes, they're vulnerable, but there may be other people of other ages who are vulnerable but not yet being contacted by their landlord. Okay, and that may work through as landlords prioritise different groups. No surprise here, tenants feeling stressed and anxious about not being able to leave the home, particularly with disabilities and children and pets to take care of. So some anxieties there. And some tenants who already identified as having some mental health issues felt this situation of isolation could worsen that situation as well there. Okay. Yeah, we asked a question around access for essential maintenance and repair services as well, because we know landlords have scaled back their non-essentials, but they still need to do essential work, whether it's gas inspections or safety inspections as well. So we asked them, are you comfortable allowing access to your home for essential maintenance? And over 43% said no. So a bit of a concern for you as landlords when you want to get out there. With that vast majority, a big majority of tenants not wanting people to come and visit their home, which is entirely understandable, I suppose, isn't it? What would they need? Is it greater reassurance about what it'd be like, what people are wearing? So those people, they'd feel comfortable if tradespeople wore PPE, adhere to social distancing, like to receive a letter or text more in preparation for the arrival. So it could be more work around what does it actually look like in reality, perhaps a video or photos of what people will be wearing, or a graphic about the stages around access, rather than just relying on the written text, some 5 steps what to do if a repairs or inspector comes to the home, what you actually need to do as well. Some tenants said landlords should use this as an opportunity to talk to tenants about how they're coping and feedback. So they've got somebody from the landlord at home. Again, there could be social distancing issues there. The less contact you want, the better. So I'm not sure how that would pan out realistically. Interestingly, one thing that came out of some analysis of results was a number of female respondents would prefer a female tradesperson at this time, perhaps when they're feeling greater anxiety or vulnerability as well. Something for you as landlords to think about in terms of providing some inclusive services there as well. And some tenants felt only emergency maintenance should be carried out at this time, which a lot of landlords are only doing as well there. So again, some interesting information perhaps to share with people from your assets or maintenance teams. Yeah, loads of communications have been going up by landlords relating to COVID-19. How useful have they been? Again, a bit of a split on this one, half and half, roughly there. Why is that? Whether they're just overwhelmed by the amount of information, can't see the wood for the trees, there's COVID information coming out from everywhere. Is it pitched right? Is it pitched wrong? Is it generic? Is it not targeted enough at specific properties or types of tenant? Again, it might be something you need to do before you continue with some of your communications, is ask tenants what information do they want? Do they want the health type of COVID-19 information, or is it more the practical information about what they should expect from you as a landlord? What would they find useful at this time? Again, we'll look at that in next week's webinar in a bit more detail as well. However, though, people who had those sort of communications, those phone calls, have found to be invaluable. I know a lot of time and effort has gone into those, and it's given them a lot of reassurance. And people have been accessing landlord websites and social media as well to access quite a bit of your information. So where have tenants been finding information about COVID-19? There's quite a big split there. Whether this could be worrying, but social media is about nearly a quarter, which is bit of a concern with the potential of fake information out there as well. TV and radio could be a bit more reliable. A lot of tenants get that information there. The regular daily updates from the government, or particularly early on, was the Prime Minister's updates. That was fairly high. Whether that is lessened now as they become a bit more routine as well. So quite a real mix of places where people are finding that information. In terms of your landlord, only 5% sort of found that COVID-19 type of information from their landlord. Again, is that something you as a landlord want to increase, or is it not your role? And it should be down to the news and other media outlets to share that more health type information as well. Yeah, interestingly, on private renters, they looked more to their local council for news rather than obviously to their landlord, which is possibly understandably. And again, some of those letters from the UK government and Welsh government, there's been lots of issues with those, can take time to disseminate. So that may have affected those sort of figures there as well. Okay, so we next asked them, what help would you like your landlord to provide? So this is quite a useful question for you all. So starting at that 16% one, those phone calls, But this was specifically around online shopping. That was obviously a concern to them. But I think generally that phone call around what support is there available, that's what they want to see from landlords as well. They want to know about more community Facebook groups available. What is out there? What can they join to support each other or to hear about what's going on more locally? So if you can do that and share that information, that would go down well. 5% said they wanted a phone call to help them set up video calling. How to do it, whether that is being able to video call you as a landlord or family or friends. Could be something for you to think about there. A big one, and again linked to some of the slides we saw earlier, but there is a big request there for information on paying rent and organising repairs. So they do want landlords to provide more information around the practicalities of being a tenant in terms of rent and the sort of services you get. Information on keeping fit and healthy, which I know a lot of landlords are sharing as well. And we've got some other ones which I think will be on the next page as well. So I think the probably big one there for you to think about is for your comms is around that practical information about being a tenant, what the landlord is doing now, how to access services, how to pay your rent, what are the options for tenants there. Yeah, people who said a lot of them didn't want any specific more help from their landlord. They were mainly PRS tenants because probably they don't expect that. Other people did mention things like help from landlord in terms of food parcels. Some people talked about school dinners being delivered or vouchers, things like that. That was a concern to some tenants, but also information around prescription deliveries as well. Who can pick up and collect? Who in the community can help them with that type of thing. So that information, if you as a landlord are in a position to collate that, that may be something else for you to think about. Okay. Interestingly there, I think from Michelle, paying rent and repairs has been over 70% of our calls in the last week. So yeah, a bit of correspondence to those survey findings there as well. That seems to be the information which tenants currently want from you as landlords now. We asked a general question about social distancing because we're aware tenants live in different types of properties, some with communal stairways, shared properties, communal gardens and other spaces. So we're interested to know, is there anything stopping people from social distancing? I won't go through every one of those, but obviously access to food is one. People still need to go shopping. Access to medical supplies was still quite high. But then there was also a lot of people who said, 33%, who said there was nothing affecting them, self-isolating as well there, which is reassuring to know. So the things that were affecting them were really the essentials: supporting family members, access to children, getting food and medical supplies as well. But a lot of people said they wouldn't struggle with social distancing. Yeah, we wanted to find out what tenants thought. They'd seen positive in the community. We've seen a lot of communities really rally round and help each other, whether it's just neighbour one-to-ones or the wider community as well. So we asked them what they'd seen, what they thought was positive. A lot of people like the local community Facebook groups. There's loads now, some which have already been going, some specifically, called the Covid-19 group for a certain area. Those are obviously proven popular. Offers of support for the elderly, shopping for the vulnerable. A lot of these things going on in communities which tenants have really found positive. Sharing of activities for children to do at home. Another one of interest. It could be for anyone, and activities to keep you busy at home as well. And generally, tenants have seen a real positive change in communities in just caring for one another, looking out for each other, being a bit more neighbourly perhaps as well. So I think that's some nice positive stories come from this unfortunate pandemic, that there is some positive stuff going on in the communities. And I think probably what we will do as TPAS Cymru, we'll have a bit of a network type session for you community type, tenant involvement type people to look at how we sort of preserve that type of community resilience, that community positivity, once we sort of start coming out of the crisis period as well. What can we as landlord groups do to try and maintain that community positivity and support out there as well into the long term? So look out for that network as well. We asked tenants in to sum up what they thought landlords' priorities should be for the near future. I'm not sure if your finance people would be happy with these ones, but rent holidays during the Covid-19 crisis was one of the main ones, and also support and no eviction if unable to pay rent. And there's obviously that no eviction period for this 3 months as well. So they were obviously, from tenants, they felt that's what landlords should prioritise. So reflecting a lot of people's concerns about ability to pay rent, losing their home as well there. Okay. So they were the main headline results. What might it mean for your landlord organisation? So if you've got any thoughts on, after seeing those, what it might mean for you, what might you prioritise, what might you look at more, information to address people's concerns. Like I said, it's about the rent, losing jobs. Can you put more information about that, about paying your rent? Because 34% said they didn't know what to do if they're struggling to pay your rent. So there's still a gap to plug there. Yeah, the loneliness and well-being, whether you want to be a bit more explicit around the support you offer, that those calls are about that you're not just purely chasing rent or telling people how to pay rent. It's wider support than that you as a landlord offer. Maybe something to think about. And I think this one is particularly interesting around providing perhaps greater reassurance around access for essential repairs. Because 43% are not comfortable allowing people in. And I know some landlords have spent some time using other staff who are redeployed to do those sort of reassurance calls before people access the property, to give that added reassurance with a call, what to expect as well. But again, I think for people to be in sort of masks, rubber gloves, other type of PPE type thing, it can be quite daunting for people. So perhaps a photo of what, workers will look like when they come to the home, perhaps give some reassurance as well. That's something for you to think about. So I'm not sure if there's anyone else got any thoughts about what it might mean for your organisation. One thing it could mean for you is really to think about, could you do a similar type survey, just really testing your tenants to find out what is their concerns, what do they want from you as a landlord now, both during the crisis but also after, perhaps as lockdowns lifted, things start to get semi-back to normal. What sort of information and support will your tenants want, or even just how they're feeling at this time? It's about being then to be able to target your communications and your support around what is of concern to tenants as well there. We used our simple do poll survey techniques. You can shape questions how you like. But even if you just use the insight you get internally, for your own staff to actually shape a different way of working, a different communications with your tenants. Okay. So has anyone got any thoughts on either the results, but also particularly find out about what it might mean for your organisation? What will you do? Will you go away and think a bit differently? Will you share something with people in your organisations, change the way you're doing things, or focus on different priorities? Anybody got any thoughts on that? Feel free to type away. I'm not seeing many thoughts. You've obviously either bamboozled, or you're doing it a lot, or you're going to ask someone else to do it. I'm just going to go back. There's some questions all coming in all at once there, I think, as well. I know Ali Ateb asked around, is there analysis of Untitled Chapter for that? We definitely can do something around Pembrokeshire as a whole, but we'll certainly look at that for you, Ali, see if there's some greater analysis, because we have got facility to do a bit more interactive results as well, where you could actually look at it by certain area or geography as well. So yeah, we'll certainly look at that for you. Interestingly, there from Maureen, yeah, many results are the same concerns that we're receiving from tenants. So it's good that there's some parity there, that there's some consistency in some of the results. So it helps reinforce what you're hearing as well. We'll pass on our findings to the RPR and comms team. That's great. Yeah, that's what you want to be able to do really with this. Will it help shape their work? And hopefully, they'll be able to target better rather than putting their energies into where it has little effect. Yeah, thank you. Go off to your meeting. That's fine. Glad you found it all interesting. Yeah, lots of our tenants who generally struggle are not great online, and that is the real challenge at the moment. The practical arrangements of staff working from home, there is that reliability on support online, but there is obviously the phone, if you're able to phone and contact people as well. And we'll look a bit more about that in next week's webinar around, the reality is at the minute, a lot online, a lot on websites, but we'll look at how you can perhaps do that differently through family and friends and other contacts as well. Yeah, TAF, doing community group chats, which is great. Concerns about dropping access for gas checks. Yeah, whether that's a video reassuring people about what it'd be like. A lot of people are concerned generally, I found, of gas checks. They just don't want people in their home, whatever. It might be their lifestyles are different to yours. Their home isn't perhaps being kept up to the standards which you might expect, feeling vulnerable at home. So there's a lot of wider issues why people don't want people accessing properties, not just linked to COVID, but it may be something that, they're just concerned about personally as well. So the more you can do around reassurance that we're not looking at your property, we're not looking at how you're living your life, we simply want access to the boiler, no other rooms, might help them, give them that reassurance as well. Yeah, tenants appreciating regular emails from us, practical advice. Thanks for that, Maureen. Leisure links to games and audiobooks. Yeah, so again, although people may not be that savvy online, a lot of people can access emails, just information about keeping people in touch as well. So again, don't forget emails rather than just website and social media. We have one. Who's this one now? Claire. Contact everyone over 70 years and vulnerable tenants and providing follow-up calls if needed. Yeah, and I think the risk is you may not know those ones who consider themselves vulnerable. Some people may not, want them to be known as vulnerable, and it's hard, isn't it? Because you've got to prioritise those other ones, but it may be a case of working through as well. But also, I'd say, if you haven't got the greatest of profiling information, talk to some of your frontline staff, your housing officers, people out in your communities. They may be able to tell you about certain people who may be potentially high risk or vulnerable at this time as well, who might be appreciative of some greater support. Yeah, loads of stuff going on now with the Happy Project. That's really taken off in response to the Covid-19 pandemic, adapted differently. So do get in touch with the staff there, doing some quite interesting work and how they've adapted that project in response to this. So I hope you found that session useful. Yeah, what I wouldn't mind knowing, you don't need to tell me now in the chat, but we are thinking about rerunning this type of survey again, to try and find out where tenants are at now. Is it getting more concerning, less concerning, things a bit more normal? So we'd like to know if there's any specific questions you may want us to ask if we do a follow-up survey to this. If there are things you want to know, by all means, do send them in. You can email me with just some thoughts, or even if it's not the question, even if it's the theme you want us to try and tease out from tenants more, we'd certainly be happy to do that again, because we are keen to keep this live, keep the conversations going, and share this type of information with the sector as well. And there's no reason, like I said, you can adapt the questions and do something yourselves with your own tenants. Even if it's just a sample of your tenants, it might give you some insight as well there. Okay. So I think it will be recorded, but if you want the slides, contact us. The full report with all the graphs and pie charts, etc., is on our website. So take a look at that one as well, and do share it across your organisation and with the decision makers in your organisation as well. Okay.